Hi everyone. So love, specifically in this case, self-love. To me, self-love is one of the most important aspects of love. And we develop self-love from, I guess, external validation when we are young. You're thinking, but surely when you're a baby, you love yourself. Well, yeah. When you're a baby, you love yourself. And when you're uncomfortable, you complain about it. By crying, obviously. And hopefully your carer will make you comfortable again. You will get fed, or you will get cleaned, or whatever the case may be that has made you unhappy. And that is where part of your self-concept comes from. And then as you get a little bit older, you start becoming injured, I suppose, when you discover that your needs aren't necessarily met. So I was raised on fear. And there was no positive reinforcement. There was no, well done, you're doing well, why don't you try this? There was, do what I want you to do or I will punish you. And if I was doing something and was caught and I wasn't supposed to be doing it, I would get punished. So the self-concept becomes one of protection. So yes, you love yourself enough to protect yourself, but your external validation of who and what you are is missing. The external validation of, oh, Giselle, you're doing well. Gee, that's a really good report card. Well done. You really look pretty in that outfit. Those things come externally. And a large part of self-concept comes from the external validation. But when you're raised with fear, when you're raised with constant criticism, not being good enough, parents who don't show you what you need, you learn to hate yourself because you believe that they would love you if you were good enough. And let that sink in. So a child who is abused, and it doesn't have to be physical abuse, it can be emotional abuse, it can be neglect, it can be sexual abuse. A child who is abused doesn't hate their abuser. They hate themselves because they have failed to protect themselves. They have done something wrong. So self-love becomes, I suppose, tarnished. I mean, how do you love yourself if the people who made you don't love you? How do you love yourself if the people around you don't care? Because if you were good enough, they would. Because that's how we're wired. You know, we're wired to believe that our carers, our parents, our siblings, our family love us. And if they don't love us, it's not their fault. it's our fault. Because if we were lovable, they would love us, surely. It stands to reason. And then you look around and you see how your friends' parents love them. And you think, well, okay, so there's something wrong with me because my friends' parents love them and my parents don't love me, so the whole thing becomes a mess and you blame yourself. So the abused child doesn't hate the abuser. The abused child hates themselves because essentially the abused child has let themselves down. If they were better, they wouldn't be abused. If they were good enough, if they were pretty enough, if they were handsome enough, strong enough, big enough, then those people would love and care for them. So the self-concept becomes skewed. And it shapes most of your life, literally. Because what you believe of yourself is how you will allow others to believe of you. So from my perspective, we had no electricity for 6 days. We, as in the plot that I'm living on. And as a result, I could keep clean, but I couldn't do my hair. And you probably think, what the hell? So what? So what? Well, I have a thing about my hair. I have a thing about my hair. I was shown how to blow dry my hair by a friend, Sharon Swanson, when I was in Standard 7 or Grade 9. I don't know how your schooling system works. When I was in school at Standard 7, so I would have been approximately 14 years old. And a friend showed me how to blow dry my hair. I have naturally curly hair. I don't like my hair. And the sad part about hair is people with straight hair want curly hair and people with curly hair want straight hair. It's just the way it is. I don't like it. I don't like the way it looks. So if I can't see it, it doesn't bother me. But I can't force myself to show myself unless it's absolutely necessary. If my hair looks hideous, and it doesn't matter if you think it looks nice or not. It matters if I think it looks nice. Because my hair is one of my masks. It is part of my protection. Probably because someone who cared about me showed me how to make it look decent. You know, I went through a phase in my early 20s where in summer, I live in a summer rainfall region, and if I straighten my hair and it smells rain, it goes curly. People have joked about it. It's like a weather barometer on my head. So I went through a phase in my 20s where I straightened my hair because I didn't enjoy getting caught in the rain, and people seeing me with my hair making me feel and look ugly. And truly, don't feel sorry for me. Don't say, oh, but you probably look really pretty with curly hair and blah, 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 blah. No, your concept of how I look is neither here nor there. You know, at this stage of my life, my previous partner was among people who told me I was beautiful. And I would look at them, sorry about the smoke, my incense is going magoo. I would look at them and I would say, I know you're referring to my insides, because my self-concept is not that I am beautiful. I'm not delusional. I'm passable from a physical perspective. My body is okay. I'm not run and hide when you see me revolting from a facial perspective, but I'm certainly not a beauty queen. One would have to be seriously poorly sighted to think that I am. I may have been slightly pretty when I was younger, but I don't think I am, and I never did think I was. And part of that is thanks to my revolting brother. I've referred to him as my hideous brother a couple of times. I have some choice names for him. I prefer not to even think of him as brother. But for sake of this, I'll use it so that you know that I'm referring to a blood relative, a male blood relative. And I was quite young, and he saw me looking in the mirror. Why I was looking in the mirror, I don't know. But he saw me looking in the mirror and chose to tell me I was vain. Now, when I started my schooling in South Africa, I went to a convent, I think it's called a convent, and we had the Christian Bible, they were actually Roman Catholic, so it would have been the Roman Catholic Bible rammed down our throats. And one of the things that comes up is that vanity is, I can't remember what they call, but it's supposed to be a sin. It may be one of the 7 deadly sins, I don't know, I can't remember. So when he told me I was vain, he also told me I wasn't even pretty. And up until I saw exactly what he is, I actually loved him. I actually would have done absolutely anything to help him. And then he betrayed me and bankrupted me and screwed up my life. And I realized exactly what he is. Because to me, he's not a who anymore. But when I was a kid, he was my big brother. He was my big brother. He wasn't going to hurt me. I literally did almost anything for him. So he made me believe I was ugly my parents had already made me believe I wasn't worth being loved. I had no external validation of who or what I was. I didn't have anybody say to me, gosh, you're pretty, or you're in really good shape, or anything else to that effect. I used to attract boyfriends who were emotionally or mentally abusive. And I figured out why. You see, I found those type of men appealing. You think, well, why would you find that type of man appealing? Because it was safe. It's what I knew. I didn't know there was anything different. When you grow up being emotionally abused, emotional abuse is not a red flag. It's a green flag. When you grow up not knowing that you aren't loved, and what you're receiving you perceive and think is love, when you see something similar, you are attracted to it. It is not a red flag, it is a giant green flag. So, most of the men that I dated confirmed my growing up. And when I started studying psychology, I realized that I was a bullshit magnet. So when I met a man who I was attracted to, ridiculously attracted to, I knew beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt that that man was either going to physically or mentally abuse. And you're probably thinking, well, how could you have been so sure? It happened with men who I wasn't partnered with. They were partnered with somebody else. If I found them appealing, I could actually predict whether or not they would physically or mentally abuse their partner. And 9 times out of 10, I was right. I decided at that stage that I'm a bullshit magnet, and I stopped dating in its entirety. I looked at the whole concept and thought, no, I'm not repeating my past over and over and over again. I'm not doing it. So I remained completely single without even going on a date for around about 16 years. And then I met my last partner. And no, I wasn't attracted. I became attracted after we had been communicating extensively for quite a while. And then I fell in love with him. So it wasn't I see this person and I find them appealing. It wasn't that. So he was different to my regular person. And yet he left, but whatever. So I'm rabbiting on about all of this and not getting to a point. the point is, my concept of self-love is skewed. I cannot show myself to people in my completely natural state and feel comfortable unless I have some form of mask or facade on. And my hair this past week was a massive stumbling block. It really was. Because I couldn't. I literally couldn't do it. I couldn't sit in front of a camera. I couldn't allow anyone to see me. Whether I care about that person or not is immaterial. If it wasn't an emergency where an animal is involved, there was absolutely no way it was going to happen. And that is the self-love concept. Because to me, the way I seem on the outside, from a physical perspective, is a measure of who I am on the inside. And everybody knows that that is rubbish. Because you can be the most spectacular supermodel and have a revolting personality. You will be seen as revolting. It is as simple and as complicated as that. Nice to look at. That's it. So one of the things I need to unpack is self-love. I need to understand all the many, many different ways I don't love myself. Because for me to get what I need, for me to get what I want, I need to be that. And how can I expect anyone to love me if I can't love myself? And I have to be honest with you. I was getting to a stage prior to meeting my now ex. I was getting to a stage where I was beginning to love myself. I was getting to a stage where I thought, well, I'm not altogether shit. I'm not altogether hideous. I knew I wasn't gorgeous to look at, passable from a physical perspective. But my heart is beautiful. My heart is beautiful. It really is. I don't harm people. I have my masks. I have so many facades, it is frightening. But unless you are harming another being, or me, normally another being mainly, you will not see any form of nastiness. I'm not nasty. I don't particularly like people, and by that I'm generalizing. The vast majority of the people I know, or I've seen rather, because the ones, you see, seen, it's difficult. There are good people. There are a lot of bad people. There are a lot of selfish, greedy people. There are a lot of damaged people. So, if I'm feeling safe, I might express distaste towards a particular person or a particular group of people for their behavior not because of the way they look, but because of the way they're behaving or misbehaving. From my perspective, because everything is from my perspective, I may voice displeasure. If I see somebody hurting somebody, then all bets off. All bets off. Because I will go into protect mode. Because nobody protected me. So I have a beautiful heart. I love animals. And no, I don't eat them. Any of them. Because, frankly, the way, I don't want to go there. You do you, I do me. I don't eat animals. I love animals. I love nature. I love love. But I don't love myself. And there's a huge problem with that. In fact, it's a fundamental flaw. Because I cannot accept love from somebody else. Unconditional, complete love from somebody else. If I cannot give that love to myself, if I can't see that I'm worth that love. So, one of the reasons I stopped dating for so many years was because I understood that what I was trying to achieve was the love from the parent to validate myself. And my father was a very aggressive man. No, he didn't physically beat us. Yes, we got hidings. Until recently, I didn't know that was a form of abuse, specifically in the frequency that it happened, but whatever. He was an aggressive man. He was loud. He spoke a good game. And I recognized that I was trying to find a man who could love me, and in doing that, validate that my father had loved me. Because if someone like my father could love me, then I was lovable. Well, no. Of course, my ex wasn't even remotely like my father. Not even remotely. So, love. Self-love. The starting block of all love is self-love. And I need to unpack that. So, if you've been through that, if you've realized that one of the things going on with you is that you don't love yourself, first of all, don't beat yourself up about it. Because you've been indoctrinated to believing that you aren't lovable. Your self-concept comes from your first carer, carers. ostensibly your parents, the people who are supposed to protect you, the people who are supposed to look after you, those people, that's where it's supposed to come from. And when they failed you, you, well, blamed yourself and hated yourself. Because the child doesn't hate their abuser. The child hates themselves. The child doesn't hate the abuser. The child believes that they would not have been abused if they were better. They would have been loved if they were more, if they were better, if they were worthy, if they were enough. So the child hates themselves, not the abuser. The child does everything in its power to make the abuser love them. And then we end up with people pleasers. Yes, I'm a people pleaser. I am. I go above and beyond. I bend over backwards for people. I literally bend over backwards for people until one day I don't. And as I've gotten older, I've learned about boundaries. It's an interesting concept, boundaries. I've also learned that when somebody steps over a boundary and you point out to them that they have, if they continue to do it, they do not like you. They do not care. They want to push you to the point where you will continue people pleasing in spite of your boundary. They will justify it. If someone continually breaks your boundary, your start of self-love is to enforce that boundary. It doesn't matter how much you like that person. If that person continually breaks a boundary, steps over a boundary, walk away because they do not care for you. They are abusing you because they are not respecting your boundary. And you may think, well, gee, what if it's something simplistic? It doesn't matter how simplistic it is. And I'm going to use a topic that'll probably get this vlog, I don't know, flagged or something. Consensual sex between partners. The minute, in fact, the nanosecond, either partner says no, it is no longer consensual. Let that sink in. The nanosecond either partner says no, it becomes non-consensual. So if you have a boundary that is accepted in law, where if either partner says no, it becomes non-consensual and becomes rape, then why would you allow somebody to cross any other boundary? If you disagree with something, if something doesn't feel good to you in any way, it doesn't matter what it is. You know, I know a person, I don't communicate with them anymore, but I know a person who continually asked for money. And I unfortunately am one of those people where when you ask, when you tell me you don't have food, you don't have, I will give. I will give. I will give you the food out of my mouth to help you. It doesn't matter how hungry I am or when last I ate. I will literally give you the food out of my mouth to help you. Anyway, this particular person did her begging routine, and I sent her some money so that she could buy food. And then she did it again. And I said to her, I'm going to send you some money. You know full well I don't have. If you ask me ever again, I will never communicate with you again at all, ever. Because you are taking food out of my mouth and I barely know you. And this female begged daily. I met her on a community group. For all I know, she lives in a mansion somewhere. And all her stories of mayhem are fictitious. I have no idea. I have never met her in person. And she decided to step on the boundary and asked me a third time. And I sent her the money. And then I told her, you've now crossed the boundary permanently. And I blocked her on every single platform. I blocked her because she didn't respect me. She didn't respect the fact that I will give when I don't have to give. And why do I do that? Well, I do that because I think other people have got more value than I have. Because I don't love myself. Because my needs aren't as important as another person's needs. And up until a few years ago, I would literally do backflips to help somebody. Now, and I'm really chuffed to say, self-love is kicking in. I've learned about boundaries. I've learned when they're being crossed. I have developed a voice to say, hey, this is a boundary. Don't do this. This is the consequence of your action. And no, I'm not a 3-year-old. I don't throw a temper tantrum and stamp my foot. I will politely tell you what you're doing that is upsetting me, that is disturbing me, that is disrespecting me. I will do it again. On the third time that you cross that boundary, I sort of figure by now you should know. I've told you twice. I've explained it clearly enough. Continued bad behavior is disrespect. It is telling you that the person doesn't care that they are harming you, that they are harming your sense of self, that they are harming some level of, I don't want to use the word boundary, but it is a boundary. It's a level of self-respect. It's a level of self-care. It's a point of, I recognize something in myself and you are hurting it, or me, and by hurting it you are hurting me, and therefore I will not tolerate it. And I now have the voice to say, I don't like this, and discuss it with you and explain why it disturbs me. And when you do it more than twice, you are showing me beyond a shadow of a reasonable doubt, you don't respect me. You don't care about me. You don't value me. And to be honest, you don't care if your action creates the consequence that you've been told will happen. You know, the first time it happens, it's a case of, unless it's something obviously gnarly like stealing from someone. You catch someone stealing from you, they know full well they've stolen from you. You don't give them a second chance. But if it's a value that they're stepping on, if it's something they're doing that's harming you, you have a right to not have that trampled on by anybody. Nobody. Not your mother, not your father, not your brothers, not your sisters, uncles, aunts, nieces, nephews. Oh, but they're family. Bullshit. Bullshit. It doesn't matter how long you have known somebody. When they show you who they are, believe them. You don't have to love and forgive anybody who is harming you, anybody who is disrespecting you. Nobody. Unless you are breaking a law, you do not. You really and truly do not have to love and respect any person who is not respecting you. And that is a tiny part of self-love. A tiny part. Anyway, I hope this added some value, and have a great day now.